Whether it's Hoosier basketball hysteria, racing at the Indianapolis 500, or remembering music from Hoosier natives who helped shape a generation. Indiana's footprint is deeply embedded in the fabric of the world. For the past 12 months, Hoosiers have been pulling out all the stops to commemorate Indiana's bicentennial.
We've worked really hard to make sure that the bicentennial is celebrated all across the state.
A private gala is going on right now here at the Indiana Farmers Coliseum at the State Fairgrounds in Indianapolis. It's leading up to a public celebration tomorrow, on the day that Indiana officially turns 200 years old. Good evening, I'm Tara Brantley. For the next half hour, I invite you to join me as we explore the rich history of the Hoosier State and talk about this weekend's bicentennial celebration, which culminates tomorrow right here at the Indiana Farmers Coliseum.
Wayne TV is proud to be celebrating Indiana 200 years young. Now, here's your host, Tara Brantley.
This is it, the big weekend for the Hoosier State. Tomorrow, Indiana turns 200 years old. All year, Wayne TV has been working with news outlets and organizations across Indiana to give you an in-depth look at Hoosier heritage. As we get ready to usher in the bicentennial, we thought it only appropriate to showcase Indiana's state flag and the person who designed it. Here's a story from Wish TV.
At the corner of Indiana and Maine, there's no shortage of hometown pride.
I've lived here all my life.
A lot of that pride centers around the state flag.
It means a lot.
It's really a part of who we are.
It is home of the state flag.
Where I grew up on South Street was just down the street from where they made the state flag.
Nobody else in Indiana can claim that. It's something that we take to heart, that we're very proud of.
It's been an exciting game.
Everything from the Pioneer football field to player helmets.
There's a monument across the street.
Showcase the torch and 19-star design. And just about everyone in town knows the name of the Mooresville man who designed it.
Hadley, right?
Paul Hadley entered a contest about 100 years ago.
It was something that the town kind of took to heart.
Our middle school is named after the founder.
Paul Hadley was a well-known watercolor artist. He had the winning submission in a contest.
Won first, second, and third place.
Yeah, that is really cool.
To design the state flag 100 years ago. Today, many pioneers in town still feel a special connection to the artist and the design that represents our state.
Beat 'em, bless 'em, beat 'em, bless 'em, that's our custom. Go team, win team, fight, 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 go blue.
So as the football team battles on homecoming and Mooresville celebrates Indiana's bicentennial, they're also celebrating a piece of history that's on display throughout the state.
Mooresville, the birthplace of the Indiana flag, that needs to be commemorated. It really does.
I am very proud that the state flag was founded here. Let's go, Mooresville!
Indiana's flag was highly visible during the state's torch relay, which began in September and wrapped up about a month later. It kicked off in Corydon and ended at the State House. And some students from Ball State University captured it all. Here's a look at the journey.
We have a lot of torch, ladies and gentlemen.
It's a relay celebrating Indiana's 200 years, designed to bring Hoosiers together.
Woohoo! You got this!
As the torch makes its way throughout the state,
we can tell some jokes if you want.
There's a hardworking team of college students.
Yeah.
Documenting every step.
This project is the coolest project I have ever been a part of.
I've done a lot of immersion projects, but this is definitely the most rewarding and the most fun.
We're gonna have so much footage in Delaware County.
31 students
I'm excited though.
From Ball State University make up the team of still photographers and videographers capturing moments along the path.
I have seen so much on this relay path. They've taken it on horses, they took it on a hovercraft, so we got to chase it with like a boat behind it. They've taken on big trailers, they've taken on horse and buggy. Literally everything they've done.
5 generations in that wagon.
Indiana history at its best.
You're doing awesome. awesome.
The students work long hours and post updated photos and videos online each day.
I thought this would be not only an excellent educational opportunity, but a great way to provide a valuable service to the state.
Instructor Chris Fluke says the project helps students grow their portfolio.
Oh, here we go.
While gaining the kind of experience
Sadie and I will probably pop out and go.
You don't get in a classroom.
We just have to solve the problem as they come out. So the learning is really just that, how to think on the fly and being able to still deliver a pretty good product.
Oh, this is awesome. Look at him.
Oh. But he hopes it becomes much more than just that.
Once they realize that they weren't just recording history, but they were actually part of it, I think that will be significant.
This is the 200th anniversary. This literally is only going to happen one time, ever.
And I've actually been really surprised at the places that I didn't think would be that interesting that actually had so many people coming out. They had so many interesting ways to carry the torch, and it's been really fun so far in that regard.
It gets heavy, doesn't it? I was always proud to be a Hoosier, but I feel like this project has brought that out even more because it's amazing what every county brings to the table and just how important this means to everyone.
Allen County also brings a lot to the table when it comes to Hoosier heritage. In fact, the man Time magazine calls the father of one of the most important inventions of the 20th century used to live right here in this Fort Wayne home. Hear about his vision and how it changed the world when we come back.
Now, here's more Celebrating Indiana 200 Years Young with your host, Tara Brantley.
Before the advent of social media, television was the medium that helped us stay connected. And it got its start from a man who used to live right here in this Fort Wayne home. His name, Philo Farnsworth. High definition. That's how we watch television with great visual clarity these days. But when TV first hit the screen, it was all mechanical, and the video was pretty cloudy.
You would look at the screen and you would see just silhouettes of people.
In steps Philo Farnsworth, a Mormon farm boy from Utah with a big vision. Wayne TV Chief Engineer Jeff Crasium explains.
Back before Philo made the first electronic TV, it was all done by light and spinning discs. So he came across with the thought process of that we could do it by scanning electrons across the screen.
And that thought led to this, a video tube.
It went from silhouetted people to you could actually make out facial expressions, actually be able to see people, to color, to where we are now.
Farnsworth moved to Fort Wayne in 1939 and started mass producing TV transmitters, receivers, TV cameras, and radios at his Farnsworth Radio and Television Corporation. In the years that followed, he won a number of lawsuits against those trying to copy his work. But it took a while for Farnsworth to really get recognition for his work. It also took a while before he and his family actually owned a television.
The summertime.
His wife recalls a TV moment involving one of their children.
When Kent started to school, he came home crying, and he said, they won't believe that my dad invented television because I'm the only one in school that doesn't have a TV.
The Farnsworths eventually got a television, and Farnsworth ended up selling his patent to RCA for $1 million and selling his corporation to International Telephone and Telegraph, ITT. Still, he remained in the Summit City to raise his family in a house at the corner of State and St. Joseph Boulevard. This home where Philo Farnsworth lived in Fort Wayne is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. He stayed here from 1948 to 1967 and then moved back to Utah, where he died in 1971. In addition to this site, there is also a small display set up at the Fort Wayne History Center. One of his proudest moments came on July 20th, 1969.
The way we saw that picture from the moon, it was a miniaturized camera tube of his with a section of electron multiplier on it to give it power. And that's how we saw the pictures from the moon. And when we saw that, He said, Pam, this has made it all worthwhile.
Before he passed away 2 years later, Farnsworth had created a nuclear fusion device and had about 300 patents under his belt. Years after he died, Time magazine named Farnsworth one of the most important inventors of the 20th century. He is considered the father of television. A man who's considered a Wabash Valley historian uses something other than television to preserve the past and embrace the future. WTHI News 10's Ross Rawling has his story.
It's only fitting that Terre Haute's historian lives in one of the oldest subdivisions in Vigo County.
Valeska Surratt, she was from Terre Haute.
Inside that house, pieces of our history line the walls.
Rose Melville was born in Terre Haute.
Old high school memorabilia, actress portraits, and train depot sketches decorate the home.
Charlie Root, who played for the Cubs and was the pitcher that threw the home run ball to Babe Ruth when he pointed, he was the pitcher here.
While the office houses sports decor, all with Terre Haute ties.
Howard Sharp was the coach.
Mike McCormick's home certainly shows his love for history.
Frankly, I have a few volumes here.
But it's here where he can really dig into our past. A second property used solely for storage, researching, and writing.
I do think we have a fascinating history.
So much so, he's dedicated years to discovering it.
I'm amazed by people that I've heard say, oh, you mean we've got somebody famous from Terre Haute other than Paul Dresser or Eugene Debs or Larry Bird?
For more than 2 decades, McCormick has written a weekly column. More than 1,000 articles uncovering stories about the residents who came before us.
I'll tell you when it becomes embarrassing. I hit upon an idea that I want to write about and get halfway into it and discover in my research, I find my own story online about the same topic I'm writing about. That is embarrassing.
An amazing ability to continue finding new information on topics hundreds of years old.
The newspapers sometimes are my final source, but I try to go further than that because the newspapers often reveal information that I can pursue elsewhere.
Hours put in, researching to confirm the facts in endless volumes of old newspapers.
I got it. You know, I found it.
Because there's no such thing as history if no one takes the time to write it down. In Terre Haute with Chief Photojournalist Mike Latta, I'm Ross Rawling, News 10.
About 2 hours away from Terre Haute is an Indiana town that really gets hyped up this time of year, the holiday season, and it should, given that it's named after a jolly old elf. We'll take you to the town of Santa Claus after the break.
Celebrating Indiana 200 Years Young continues.
During this festive time of year, a small Hoosier town really decks the halls and gets thousands of Christmas letters from kids all around the world. WEVV 44 news anchor Shelby Coates goes over the river and through the woods to Santa Claus, Indiana.
Just off Interstate 64 in Spencer County, people see the signs and requests for selfies with Santa.
I love it. I love living in Santa Claus.
Growing up nearby, Melissa Brockman oversees the Spencer County Visitors Bureau in Santa Claus, Indiana, where she says everyone is on board with the holiday dose of Hoosier hospitality.
If you're in Santa Claus, business or resident, you love Christmas. Our businesses are themed like the Santa's car wash, the Santa Claus hardware store.
The town was first known as Santa Fe, Indiana, but in 1856, when it tried to register for its first post office, there was already a Santa Fe.
We discussed, there may have been a few disagreements trying to come up with what to call this magical place.
Legend has it the name was decided at a late night meeting on Christmas Eve.
All of a sudden, the wind burst open the doors, the kids heard jingle bells, they said, Santa Claus! And the adults looked at each other and said, Santa Claus, Indiana it is.
The town stayed quiet and unknown for years, but letters addressed to Santa started pouring into the local post office, and the town still receives thousands of those letters today.
Always good artwork. We get a lot of lovely drawings. We try to save a lot of those.
In 2015, there were more than 22,000 Santa letters. Emily Thompson and her army of elves helped Santa answer every one.
We've got kids, who are sending in just a wish list. They've got like 40 items that they want. We've got the kids who say, don't worry about me, just give my gifts to other children who, who can't get anything else this year.
The tradition started more than 100 years ago with the 14th postmaster, James Martin. Filled with Christmas cheer, Martin answered the letters on his own.
And these letters were coming to town addressed to Santa Claus, and there was no one to, help Santa answer.
When the task got too tall, family, friends, and community groups made it a jolly joint effort, a tradition that still stands today.
There are some letters that are really funny and sweet, that ask Santa, please forgive me for hitting my brother 1,000 times this year, or Santa, I don't have a chimney. Could you please use my dryer vent?
Letters at the Santa Claus Museum date back to the 1930s, showing artwork, handwriting, and events over time.
Bring my daddy home from Afghanistan.
And if families aren't mailing letters to Santa Claus, they are visiting the area. Santa Claus Land, known as the nation's first themed park, opened here in 1946. Today, it's Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Other attractions include Santa's Candy Castle and this Santa statue, both dedicated in 1935, proving this town has tourism down to the tinsel, holly, and mistletoe. In Santa Claus, Shelby Coates, 44 News.
Of course, you can visit Santa Claus, Indiana any time of year, but for holiday events going on this month of December, there's a buffet-style Christmas dinner with Santa at Santa's Lodge, or you can roast chestnuts on an open fire at Santa's Candy Castle. And new this year, the Brew Ho Ho, that features 12 Christmas beers at the Santa Claus Community Center. For details on these Santa Claus, Indiana activities and more, here's the toll-free number. Dial 1-888-444-9252 or check out santaclausind.org. Now, if you'd rather stay in the Fort Wayne area, there are plenty of holiday happenings. For a list of those, go to wayne.com and click on Community. Now, if you're busy getting ready for Santa and you still haven't figured out what to get that special someone on your Christmas list, how about these? A pair of shoes. Coming up, Indiana's connection to one of the best-selling shoes in America.
Now, here's more celebrating Indiana 200 Years Young with your host, Tara Brantley.
Next year will mark the 100th anniversary of a shoe that's become the most popular selling brand in America. And it has roots right here in Indiana. Wish TV 24-hour News 8's Megan Sanctorum has the story.
This is just a copy from the 1917 Columbus High School yearbook. That's Chuck in the lower right.
Born in Brown County and spending his teenage years in Bartholomew County, Indiana is where Chuck Taylor got his start.
Went to high school in Columbus, and he starred on the basketball team there. He was the captain of the varsity team when he was a sophomore.
Abe Amador is the author of Chuck Taylor All-Star. He says Taylor left Indiana to join a basketball team. He was very successful and popular and began traveling the country doing basketball demonstrations and selling Converse shoes.
He did not invent the shoe. The All-Star shoe was born, if you want, in 1917.
So how did his name get on the shoe? Amador says Converse went out of business in 1928. The family that revived the company needed a new brand.
Instead of selling the Converse All-Star, it becomes the Converse Chuck Taylor All-Star with his autograph on it.
By the 70s, the shoe wasn't used by many teams on the court anymore, but sales remained high. He says to date, more than 1 billion pairs of Converse shoes have been sold.
It caught on as a fashion statement. Now, why did it catch on as a fashion statement? That's a mystery.
But Amador says Chuck Taylor had something to do with it. And he said there's something every Hoosier can learn from him.
That he had a dream, he invented himself. You can do that. He did it, why not?
Just another reason Hoosiers love basketball. Tomorrow, Indiana's year-long bicentennial celebration comes to a climax here at the Farmers Coliseum at the State Fairgrounds. An event called Celebrate Indiana, Ignite the Future invites all Hoosiers to mark Indiana's 200th birthday with an inspirational celebration. It's a free event, and some Fort Wayne groups will perform.
We have used the tagline of Celebrate History, Ignite the Future during this whole bicentennial year. So this is our way of kind of passing that torch to the 3rd century of Indiana's history. So, and since it's on a Sunday, we have a number of faith leaders from all different branches of faith experiences who will give short inspirational messages. Then we'll have children's groups who will be part of it.
Festivities get underway at 10 tomorrow morning and wrap up around noon. Of course, we'll have some of the highlights on tomorrow's evening news and on Wayne.com as Indiana turns 200 years old. Thanks for joining us for Celebrating Indiana 200 Years Young. I'm Tara Brantley.